What's going on, everybody? Zack Williams back with another episode for the Men in Uncaged. As you know, this is all about the journey to the top 1% and how do we get there by becoming 1% better daily. And so today's topic is probably going to upset a couple people. It's something that I've been seeing posted every once in a while inside the free group for Uncaged. We'll ask questions about like what lessons men have learned. And one of the common denominators that I've seen over and over and over again from multiple different people, it's not just the same person bitching all the time, right? Like that's not how we operate in Uncaged, but it's just something that I've seen significantly often pop up, and it's you can't trust other people. And that one stings for me a little bit. Obviously, like I've been through some shit in my own life. I know you've probably been through your own level of shit. And a lot of times we can trace some of that back to quote unquote trusting other people. But when we have to really dive in to what these people are saying when they say that you can't trust people, when you start to really feel this in a mindset of wanting to get over it, wanting to actually grow from this. Because, like, we don't just bitch and uncage. Like, is life hard sometimes? Fuck yeah, life's hard sometimes. Am I going through some shit right now? Probably. Are you going through some shit right now? Probably. It is what it is. And for us, same testament I'd take to my relationship with my wife. Like, my objective isn't to not fight with my wife. Like, no, I don't want to fight with my wife. Let's be very real there. But it's unrealistic expectation for me to say like I'm not going to fight with my wife. However, we've taken that perspective shift and said we don't want to have the same fight twice. We understand we're going to fight. We try to fight better and better every time. And we try to learn and grow as humans, as individuals, separately, as people. But the objective isn't not fight. It's unrealistic. And when you start to put in unrealistic expectations on relationships, this is what we're talking about here, relationships with other people. Oh, you can't trust someone else. That's a relationship problem. Doesn't mean it's a relationship with your wife, but it could be friends, business partners, vendors, contractors, like you name it, children. There's a huge list of relationships that could cause this inferior mindset where you believe you can't trust people. And again, been through the shit, and I know that I'm sure you've been through some shit, and we all have lessons that we have learned from it, and we could probably sit here all day long and trade stories back and forth and start weighing sins and forgiveness, see whose life or whose situation's worst. But the worst situation is continuing on life with this mindset that you can't trust people. Because when you start to get heartbroken over what someone else did, when you start allowing what someone else did affect you mentally, and sometimes mentally leads to physically, sometimes mentally leads to physically leads to financially, sometimes mentally leads to spiritually, or whatever the case is. If you start to allow someone else's actions to dictate how you feel, that's a you problem. That is a you problem. Have you been, is it possible to put faith and put trust in someone else, get burned, and move on? Fuck yeah, it is. Because it's all about your mindset. You can have two people go through the same exact situation. One person with a shitty mindset is going to walk around and be like, fuck everyone. Can't trust anyone. And there's someone else that's going to say, all right, what did we learn here? What is something that I can take with this and apply it to my life moving forward so that I don't end up in this situation again, over and over and over? Because you know what? I'm willing to bet that the people that come on there, in Uncaged, we take a lot of things with learning lessons. So yeah, it's cool. We got a safe place for men to vent. That's fine. Vent. Get it off your chest. Release some of that anger. But now what did we learn? And so my hope is I'm willing to bet that most people, I'm hoping that in Uncaged it's different, but most people that would sit there and come on a post like that and be like, oh, you can't trust people, or say, maybe they say it out loud, maybe they make their own post, whatever the case is. You can't trust people, you can't trust people, you can't trust people. You have this mindset. If they have not realized that them putting faith in someone else and allowing the quote unquote failures of their expectations to affect them negatively in a mental capacity, that is a them problem. That is them not being able to control their emotions. Potentially, that's them not taking in to different perspectives or different situations that could have come up, or just making assumptions. But again, to go back to this real fast before I lose this point, is those people that sit there and just blame other people, can't trust other people, can't trust other people, can't trust other people, without taking the perspective of learning, how do we learn from this? We'll end up in that same situation again. They will end up putting faith or trust or love or respect or whatever the case is into another human being and probably get burned the same fucking way. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to keep whining about their wounds. Can't trust people, can't trust people, can't trust people. Then all of a sudden, guess what? Another opportunity comes around where someone else, another human, can benefit you, and you're looking for an opportunity to take advantage. And now, because you're desperate, because we understand that desperate people act out of character, you take them up on it. Again, history repeats itself. You get burned, or you get let down, or you get disrespected, or whatever the case is, and then you're back on social media blaming other people. You're allowing other people to control your mindset, to control your mood, to control your perspective. And here you are again. Can't trust people. You can't trust people. You can't trust people. So at some point, we have to take into consideration extreme ownership. What does extreme ownership look like? Are you putting faith in the wrong kind of person? Which would be your problem, which would be your fault. You put improper amount of trust and faith and respect and honor and whatever into someone else that you shouldn't have. That's your fault. Maybe you have unrealistic expectations. Maybe you didn't go through the definition of done. These are all things that you, as yourself, being the one person that you can control, right? Control the controllables. The controllable in this situation is you, not the other person. That's an uncontrollable. You cannot control anyone else. You can't control them mentally. You can't control them physically. You can't control them spiritually. You cannot control them financially. There's one person in this world that you can control. That's you, especially your mental state. Why in the world, if we believe in extreme ownership, would someone else's actions, worst case, words, be able to affect you negatively? Now, I'm not saying walk around life not trusting people. I'm actually saying the opposite. How do we learn from these situations and take extreme ownership and say, man, I trusted the wrong person. That's me problem. What can I do moving forward to ensure that I do not establish that much trust in someone that's not worthy? What are the signs that I overlooked? Like I said, desperate people act out of character. Maybe you typically, in a normal scenario, based on theory, you make the right decisions. You trust the right people. But then all of a sudden, something comes up. Maybe finances get difficult. Maybe it's been a while since you've been laid. Like maybe, whatever the case is, maybe your mental meter is just dropping. But now you are acting out of desperation. You are being reactive to a situation instead of proactive. And so you cut corners. You let some things slide. You choose the wrong person to put faith, trust, love, honor, respect, whatever it is. You made the wrong decision to trust the wrong person. Okay? Maybe we put too much faith in them. Maybe we picked the right person, but there's too much faith in their skill set or their mentality or their core values. Maybe they're good for a specific role, Maybe they're good for a specific position in your life. Maybe they're good in a specific relationship or a specific mood or a specific dynamic. But you put too much faith in them that they can manage across the board. That then becomes, again, a you problem. So if we see ourselves in this situation where we deal with this, fuck, man, can't trust anyone, can't trust anyone, can't trust anyone. No, maybe that's not it. Let's take the extreme ownership. Let's evaluate the situation. Maybe you did trust the right person. And maybe they did really, really, really good at this one thing. But you got desperate. You got lazy. You were looking to maximize the efficiency on the lowest amount of investment. So therefore, you did not train them correctly. You did not. You hired the wrong person. You didn't train them correctly. You didn't handle the situation. You didn't give them the proper amount of tools. You didn't give them the proper amount of budget. You didn't give them the amount of love and attention and attraction and you got desperate. You fucked up. You tried to you expected so much out of this one person because you didn't set proper boundaries. You didn't set proper expectations, and they were great at one position or one role in your life. But you just wanted to pour more and more and more responsibility on them because it takes more and more off of you. And so you made the mistake by giving them too much. Again, that's a you problem. This is extreme ownership. Now, I'm not saying that this is true in every situation and in every scenario. I'm not saying that at all. But we've got to be objective here when we start to look at things. If you truly want to focus on becoming 1% better daily, you have to take extreme ownership and see, how did you fuck up, because you are the controllable. So what is it that you could have done differently? How could you have prepared this situation to be better? And because we'll take a business approach to this. I know guys that run $100 million a year businesses as single member entities, as well as I know guys that run $100 million a year organizations that both in every piece of their portfolio, in every company inside their organization, in everything that their trust owns, they are partners with someone else that will sit here till they're blue in the face and tell you how great partnerships are. Have they been burned before? Fuck yeah, they have. Did they learn from those mistakes? Fuck yes, they did. Put your hand on the stove enough, gets hot, sometimes you'll start taking your hand off. But others will start to realize that, hey, maybe we need to play with the stove. Maybe we do need to use the stove to be a tool and an asset in our life. So what do we need to do to prepare to play with that stove? Do we need gloves? Do we need certain pots and pans and tools and assets and things like this? So for this person, did they get burned? Yes, they did. But they learned from it. They applied it to their life because they still need that. They still need those businesses to operate without them having to be 100% committed to them. Multiple millions of dollar organizations. Live, die, sleep, breathe, eat, all based on partnerships. Some can't stand it. Some, that's not the way they operate. They have to control everything. They have to have their hands on everything. They have to be able to see everything because that's the way that they operate. I'm not saying either is right or wrong, but I'm saying in order to figure out what works for you, you have to be the one that gets better. You have to focus on the controllables. You have to focus on, why did this relationship go south? Why did these expectations not get hit or met? What was it that you could have done better? Because you are the only person that you can control. So what was it that could have been done better that you yourself as a human being could have done? And when it comes to those partnership agreements, I'm not going to get into too much of this. This comes up in Uncaged on the roundtable calls quite often. Is a lot of this, again, goes back to being your fault. If a business partnership failed or went south, 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to say 100%, but 9 times out of 10, it all comes down to the operating agreement. You didn't pay enough time and attention on the operating agreement. Y'all didn't set proper boundaries. Y'all didn't set proper expectations. Y'all just jumped into this willy-nilly with no information, without doing any type of fucking research, and just shook some hands and started rolling. Guys, if there's one thing I can tell you, money can definitely come in between people. But I've seen some extremely hectic businesses, extremely stressful industries producing tons of fucking money. And those operating agreements kept those relationships just as pure as they ever have been. Because they set those expectations. They know roles and responsibilities. They also know consequences. That operating agreement keeps you from getting desperate, because when you start to get desperate and you move into uncharted waters, territory you've never experienced before, and you freak out and you get scared and you start to get desperate, you start cutting corners, you start making mistakes, and then you're looking for a scapegoat. You're looking for someone else to blame. Now, I'm not saying that you can't be fucked over. Been there, done that. I've got the t-shirt. I've seen many of my guys go through it. I know some guys going through it right now. I know some guys that have been through it, are going through it, will go through it. I get it. But I want you, it's my responsibility to say what I feel. I'm not saying everything that I say is 100% correct. Take what you hear. If it's something that strikes a chord with you, go do your own research and figure it out on your own and how it applies to your life. There's no podcast out there that can speak directly to single individuals of every one of their viewers. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I've seen this happen over and over and over again, both in the best outcomes because operating agreements were set up correctly, and in the worst nightmares because operating agreements were not set up correctly. Not saying that that's a foolproof plan, but I'm saying if I were you and I'm starting to have this mindset of I can't trust anyone, I would go back to your operating agreement. I would look at it. I would hire a professional to go through it. I've got multiple recommendations for you if you want them. That is what's going to protect you from being in this negative mindset of you can't trust anyone. The next thing that I want to say, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, about having realistic expectations and then also like wanting too much from people. Again, when I see some of these people dumping so much faith and trust on humans, on other humans, because you're human as well, is I want to say it to me, I've seen it come out of laziness and greed. Like if I give someone something and they do great at it, don't get me wrong, I would love to expect that they could continue that greatness, continue that progress, and apply it to other realms of their life. But think about yourself. Are you perfect in everything that you do? Fuck no. Why would you think that someone else is? I'm not saying that there's not amazing people out there in this world that have incredible just talent and are gifted and have strong work ethics and mean well and have hearts of gold that would love to. But you start to put so much pressure on these people and so much faith on these people that they literally cannot hold up to this false ideology that you believe that they are. And a lot of that becomes a slippery slope because you trusted them with something. They did great at it. Awesome. Fuck yes. And you gave them some more responsibility or some more tasks, some more whatever. And they did good at it. And they did good at it. And they did good at it. And then you kept on until you broke them, until you found out where they were not successful. And now you want to cut ties with them and blame them. This is a you thing. You've got to go back into figuring out, first of all, why did you expect someone else to go so far and to fight so hard for you? Why did you expect someone to do that? There's no one out there that's ever going to fight as hard for you and your dreams and your goals and your desires as you. Half the time, they don't even know it because there's a lack of communication because you don't And it's a whole nother podcast, but that lack of communication is your fault. Those false hopes and false pretenses and false responsibilities, that's your fault. Why not celebrate the fact that they did certain things correctly? Now, again, I'm not saying that there's not evil people out there in this world. I've been there, done that. I've been through some shit. I've been through some shit in different cognitive lives of me. In my past, I was not focused on personal development. I had not exercised these muscles in my brain to operate or think like this. I've been burned, and it hurt for a long time. And it affected the way I treated other human beings. Very, very much so. And down this path of personal development and growing and just trying to be the best version of myself that I could be, I had to start looking inwards and what I could have done better in some of those situations. How could I have operated more optimally? How could I have been smarter when it came to specific things? What was it that I should have done? And I took those situations and I learned from them. And like I said earlier, I applied them to my present and my future to hope that we never go through that same situation again. I don't ever want to hurt the way I've hurt in the past because I trusted someone else that shouldn't have been trusted. I gave too much trust to them, whatever the case was. These were situations that I had to learn from, that I had to grow from, because guess what? That's my responsibility. Those people are no longer in my life. How would I put that responsibility on them to make my life better? They're gone. They are no longer, some of them aren't even allowed in my life because my standards are so high, because I have certain expectations, and because I have learned so much, and because I want to trust people. I want to trust people. Why would you not want to trust people? And listen, the people that have made posts on some of those, or comments on some of those posts, or maybe you're thinking this right now, you and yourself, like, it's a lonely life without others in it. You don't really mean that. You're hurt right now, I understand. Again, you just got burned. That wound is still fresh. But you've got to figure out how to stop getting burned like that. That scar tissue is going to end up building up and building up and building up. It's not going to be fun. So how do we keep ourselves from having to repeat these same situations? What do you, as the controllable, what do you learn from that? And one of the coolest things that I've learned in the last several years that I think applies 100% here, one of my really, really good friends, he was one of the experts for one of our expert calls for the men in Uncaged. Dude is extremely high up in the U.S. military. And one of the things that he taught us that will stick with me specifically forever, is the definition of done. What does the definition of done look like to you for that person that you're putting trust in? Because I'll tell you, like, I look at it like this. I have a creative and artistic background. Like, that's traditionally, that's the way my brain has operated, right? And so for me as a creative or as a visionary, it's the translation between what is in my head, how I'm able to verbally or physically explain that to you in order for you to produce what is inside my head is extremely difficult, if not impossible. Like, if I were to picture an image right now that I wanted you to go draw, the chances of you drawing that to the likeness of my image is probably few and far between. Likewise, in my businesses, if I come up with a strategy of a complete holistic business strategy for something, and I communicate it to you without actually step by step going through everything, like, because I have lack of an explanation, or I have a lack of a definition of done to you, and I tell you in a meeting, and you go and you integrate, you produce, and you come back, and it's not up. What do you think the chances are of single conversations that you're going to be able to produce that. It's very unlikely, again, if not impossible. But once we start to elaborate on what the definition of done is for specific skills, for specific tasks, for specific roles and responsibilities, for specific members, this can be in your personal life, this can be in your professional life. What's the definition of done if I tell Lottie to go clean her room? I have an idea in my head of what a clean room looks like, and she probably has another. So if that translation between the two is not verbalized, if I do not show her, if I do not give her examples, if I do not explain it thoroughly, and if I do not understand that she comprehends what my definition of done is, it is my responsibility on getting mad at her if I go in there and her room is not clean to my standards, because I did not explain the definition of done correctly. I might go in there and tell her, hey, she needs to clean her room. She goes and puts toys up just anywhere and everywhere. The room itself is actually clean, but some of the toys are misplaced. And so I did not explain my definition of done, saying, hey, you got to clean up your room. Doesn't mean just throwing stuff wherever it goes. You've got to put it where it belongs. Everything has a home, and it's your responsibility to consider this room cleaned, to make sure that every toy that is in its home is placed where it's supposed to be. Everything is put together. Everything's folded. Beds made. This, that, whatever. Now we have a definition of done. So when I put my faith and trust in my daughter to go clean her room, but not only go clean her room, when she reports back to me and tells me, hey, Daddy, I've cleaned my room, we now have a baseline and an understanding of what the definition of done looks like. So when I go to critique her work, if it hits those standards, we are done here. If it doesn't, then there's repercussions that come with that. There's other roles and responsibilities that come. But now my faith and trust is still intact. I still trust her. I still have faith in her. I'm not saying, fuck, whatever, you can't trust anyone. It's a learning lesson. How do we grow from this? What do we learn here? What do I learn? What does she learn? How do I coach her? How do I take extreme ownership in the entire situation? What could I have done better so that we don't end up in a situation like this again? That has probably been one of the, in both my personal life and my professional life, what does the definition of done look like to you? And how can you get better and better at being able to verbalize that with the people that are in your life so that they understand your expectations to a T, so that they can't let you down? Because at that point, they have a right and a wrong thing to do. That right and the wrong thing to do is going to show you who that person is. And based on what that person shows you is how you then operate and handle and treat them moving forward. Now you don't get to use the excuse, fuck, you can't trust anyone. Because now you gave them a solid definition of done. You've been through everything we've explained already. You've taken extreme ownership. You've grown. You've learned from your mistakes. Here you are. You're applying everything you've learned from your past into this one relationship right here that we're handling at this moment. And you give them this definition of done. And they return. If they do it correctly, you have 1, 2 options. Continue giving trust to them or removing it. Whereas if they don't do it correctly, you have one of 2 choices to make. Continue giving them trust or remove it. That's on you. That's up to you. And you get to remove the emotion completely out of this because now you have standards on how you operate in your life when someone does or does not follow through with what has previously been agreed upon based on everything that you've learned, based on understanding that we have a common idea here of what the definition of, not idea, you know what the definition of done is. And you have a common agreement that this is important, that there is, people understand why we're doing what we're doing, that they're bought into the mission, that believe in the core values, that trust the process, that know, like, and trust you, this person that you're putting faith in, that you're putting trust in. They're going to have 2 outcomes. They're going to succeed, they're going to fail. Based on those 2, you have 2 options. You continue pouring more trust, faith, love, advice, honor, respect on what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it, or you don't. Either way, that's your decision. That is a controllable that you have the power to possess. And then the mental shift moving forward from here is not if we decide to cut ties with this person, if we decide to cut dead weight, it is your responsibility mentally to not allow that to affect you, to hold your head high, poke your chest out, pull your shoulders back and say, you know what? I made a good decision. I took a shot. Unfortunately, they didn't come through. I control the controllables. I learned from this. We are moving forward on a more solid foundation because we understand what went wrong here. We're going to apply that to our future. We're going to apply it to our present. And now we have a better understanding of how, why, when, where we can trust people so that it does not give me this perspective, this negative connotation to other human beings and putting faith and love and trust and respect on them. So what is it out there that you're dealing with right now where it's your fault that you trusted someone too much? What is it that you can do? What situation are you in right now that could have been handled differently, that could have been handled in a better manner, that moving forward, you can apply what you are evaluating to the future so that you don't end up in this situation right here, right now, where you're wondering if you could ever trust anyone again. Because you trusting other people is a you problem, is a you thing. It doesn't have to be a problem. It could be a you solution. But you have control over this. This right here, this mental mindset shift that you're having, and this new outlook that you have on putting faith and trust into other people, this is you. You control this. So how can you take this? And if you're still listening to this, you're the uncaged kind of man that wants to focus on becoming 1% better. So now what do you take from this podcast and apply it to your life moving forward so that you feel better about yourself, so that you can trust people moving forward? What is it? I want to hear about it. Leave me a comment. Guys, this episode, I've been looking forward. I've put this a few episodes off. Noticed that it needed to be spoken about. I had that series that we just got done running through, and then I wanted to make sure that this was immediately the next thing that we talked about. I wanted to continue with the momentum that we have been creating with the channel. If you got anything out of this, if you know that there's someone else out there in your life that needs to hear this, please share this with them. This is how the Uncaged movement's going to get out in the world, is by people like yourself going out there and trying to truly help us get this type of information in front of the people that need to hear it the most. But guys, this is the Uncaged podcast. My name is Zack Williams. As you all know, this is the journey to the top 1%, which is by getting 1% better daily. Thank you so much. If you need anything else from me, the team, pack leaders, want to find out anything else about our free group, our merch, our app, the VIP group, please go to uncagedcrew.com. Take a look at it. Go ahead and sign up for anything. We just want to be connected with you. We just want to be surrounded by like-minded men, and we just want to keep pushing this movement forward. But I appreciate y'all, and we'll see you soon.